Hi Thomas, welcome in the studio.
Yeah, hello. Glad to be here.
In this third Forward TV episode, we're going to talk about headless. What is headless?
Well, depending on who you ask the question, you're going to get a different answer. Over the years, you've heard terms like composable commerce, composable service, microservices, simply just separating your front end from your back end. It goes from a simple system to very complex really quickly. But in its basis, what headless means is API first. It means that your system is exposed to the outside world through APIs. All of the configuration, all of the data is exposed to external systems so that they can fetch what they need, configure what they need, and build their own storefront, or maybe a different system like Alexa can talk to your system, get the information it needs to provide a solution to maybe towards other companies or towards consumers. So it's a really broad term with a lot of different answers behind it, which has caused quite a bit of confusion over the years because everyone had a different story about headless.
But what could be the pros of taking this approach?
Well, if we're looking at a headless approach towards the monolithic approach where everything is in one system, the main advantage of it is going to be flexibility. If you're going to separate your systems, like your front end from your back end, you can have different teams managing those systems. You can have different release cycles. You can have one team just focusing on the front end, and even within that front end, different teams, one on the checkout, one on the my account, etc. And quickly release new features, try out new things. If we're looking at an older system, not so agile, so headless is an approach that really fits in well with agile, quick releases to try out some new things. You want to do some A/B testing, but there's a big backend integration going on and your front end has to wait for it to finish, and you're doing a release maybe every month, every 3 months. And that doesn't really provide you with the flexibility to try out new things, especially in e-commerce. If you're looking at releases, you want to try out new things really quickly to see if it can get you conversion. A quick change on the PDP that you want to do or on your lister page. But if you have to wait 1 month or 2 months every time for your change, then you don't really have a good way to measure the impact. Now that's one of the advantages. Another is also separation of concerns, as they say it. Every system does what it does best. You have your e-commerce system providing all of the tools for baskets, your add to baskets, product data, promotions, possibly some campaigns mixed in there, and maybe a different system, a content management system that really does does your content really well, better than your e-commerce system if it was in one system, and just provides the APIs for that. And your storefront can call both systems. And you can get best of both worlds. You get the best CMS combined with the best e-commerce, and then you use what you need to build your storefront. And that also comes to the maybe not so positive side. It adds a lot of complexity. Instead of one system that you need to look at, you have 3 systems, or maybe 4 or 5, depending on how far you want to take this road. If we're talking just separating storefront from the backend, where still the backend takes up all of your concerns, your promotions, your content, your products, campaigns, A/B testing, etc. You have 2 systems to worry about: your backend and your front end. But if you say you go the microservices way of working, the more complex way. You have a system that does promotions, you have a system that does your product data, you have a system that just handles your basket/checkout, you have your content somewhere else as well. Those are all systems that you need to look at. If there's a problem, you have to look at 6, 7 systems to figure out where is this going wrong. You also have multiple servers to look at. If you look at the monolithic approach where everything is one system, there's a performance issue. You have to look at one system. The site is slow. Okay, we're going to look at that one system and see, okay, that's where it is. We know it's there because it's the only system we have. But if you have 6, 7 systems all working together, possibly in a perfect way, but of course, if there's a problem, AWS goes down, and one of those services was on AWS, you need to figure out
where is that issue?
Indeed. Which of those services was on AWS and which is affected, and why is it slowing down everything? Is this supposed to happen? And how do you figure out which system it is? You need to look in so many different places and possibly also communicate with all of those different vendors. You might have to, for one issue, create a support ticket with vendor A saying, yes, your system is slow. And then for a different issue, contact a different vendor again. While if you look at a monolithic system like Salesforce Commerce Cloud, you create a support ticket, and whether it's in the front end, maybe a network issue, your CDN, or any other system hosted by Salesforce, it's one place and they will figure out where it's going wrong. But if you have 6 vendors, you need to first figure out which vendor it is, then create a support ticket, and then hope that that was the correct vendor that was causing the issue, because you can still be wrong.
Yeah, I read between the lines that this is a more complex setup. Does it also mean that this is typically something for customers with a larger team working on it?
Yes and no. It depends on how complex you want to take it. Like I said at the beginning, you can make it very complex, make everything a microservice, talk with different vendors, but you can also do it on a simple way. Just say, okay, we're separating our front end from our back end. This means that we can do campaigning, maybe do some marketing campaigns, a bit more flexible than if it was one big system. And then you have 2 systems to worry about. Of course, you might need 1 or 2 persons more than you would with a monolithic, but you definitely don't need teams of 20, 50 people, because it's still quite a simple structure. You have your front end and your back end, and those 2 are talking to each other. And it's as complex as you want to make it. You have the choice. There's a lot of flexibility within the term headless, and taking an approach towards maybe moving from a monolithic to a headless approach, you can do this in baby steps. You don't have to do it in one go. You can do it over a couple of years. Maybe let's look at maybe a roadmap. You are interested in an application, but you don't have one yet. But your e-commerce platform provides APIs. Maybe build that application alone first. Keep your monolithic structure, but then build your application using those APIs. Test them out. See if it works for you. Are you able to sustain? Or is it what you expected it to be? And then say maybe, okay, let's do this also for our e-commerce side. 1 year or 2 years later, depending on your planning, your priorities, etc., and say, okay, it works for the app, but we want that app feel also for the storefront of our website. Maybe something really similar, and then do the storefront, separate that as well. And then look at maybe a kiosk in the store, or your register, an extra screen next to your register that talks to the e-commerce platform to get your customers, for example. There are ways to do this, and the order I'm talking about, you can switch that around completely. First start with the screen next to your register, then move to your website, then build an app. But the way you do this, you decide. It's the advantage, like I said, of headless is the flexibility. It fits really well with Agile. So that means that you can really, make flexible decisions on how you approach headless. You can go very simple and add complexity along the way. So your organization has time to adapt to that complexity. If you at one point notice, okay, we need someone extra to help us support, someone with the technical knowledge to keep track of everything that's going on in our organization, then you have the time, because you're slowly raising the complexity of your setup from a simple separating backend from front end, or maybe just a separate application, and just slowly slowly grow the complexity of your system with the size of your company.
Yeah, but before we dive into what this means in the Salesforce landscape, headless has become a real buzzword in the e-commerce industry. Does that mean that the older way is old-fashioned?
It doesn't mean that the old way is old-fashioned. I mean, you have very modern systems, a monolithic system, and still companies starting out now providing a omni-channel, as they call, system that does it all. You really have to figure out what fits for you, what fits within your organization at that time, and also for the coming years. Because of course, when you choose a platform for your e-commerce or order management or any other big system to handle all of that information, it's a big decision. So you need to see what fits within my organization, what are people willing to work with. Because if you go for an overly complex architecture, but you're not using any of it, then
you're spending money for nothing.
You're spending money for nothing. You made a very flexible system because you can, if you take composable commerce, as they say, you can take your promotion engine, take it out and put a different system in there, a different promotion engine. It might be better, that supports other promotions that you want to do, and just replace that promotion engine. But if you're not planning to use to interchange those systems within the next 6 years, then why make it so flexible if you're not going to use the flexibility, if you're not planning on doing anything with it? So then a monolithic structure works perfectly fine. Then that's what you can use. And it can also be a modular system. A monolithic does not mean that it is not a modular system, that you cannot plug in external systems within it. It's just a different way of working and a different flexibility compared to headless.
Okay. If we zoom into Salesforce Commerce Cloud, how has Salesforce implemented this headless ID into their product?
Yeah, so for that, we need to go a bit back into the years. In Commerce Cloud, the first real move towards headless would be the Open Commerce API. It was released many years ago. And that allowed applications to be built or external systems to talk to Commerce Cloud. This had a lot of APIs, but not everything was accessible through APIs. And that is still growing. Then the new commerce APIs were released a few years back with MuleSoft in the middle to give you a bit more control, and also for performance reasons help you with your headless journey. So there's two options now within the Commerce Cloud environment. And that gave you a lot of APIs to do all of your e-commerce. You can do your baskets, your product data, searching, customer data, etc. All of that is available within Commerce Cloud. But of course, that was your body. So we're talking about headless. So Commerce Cloud is the body, but of course, Salesforce still needed to find a head. Now, maybe something I heard before, the neck could be MuleSoft. So you have a head, you have a body. And in some cases, MuleSoft was the neck. If we're looking at the commerce APIs, because that's MuleSoft, they are already added a neck. But the head was still missing. So then, Salesforce started to look like, okay, there's a gap that we can fill. And they found Mobify, a company already partnershiped with Salesforce, and has now been acquired quite a while ago, and has been rebranded to the PWA Managed Runtime, which gives you the front end based on React, which is a very popular programming language that you will find a lot more developers for than you would find for SFRA. It is the way it is. As a Commerce Cloud is a niche market, especially to find developers with experience. And with a headless approach, the storefront being in React will give you the flexibility to find people who have no prior knowledge of Commerce Cloud, but do know React, and they need to learn the APIs of Commerce Cloud. So now that there's the PWA kit, you have your front end, your storefront, and your back end all within the ecosystem of Salesforce. And why is this a very interesting thing? And this is also, for me personally, I'm not a hardware person. I like programming, I like the architecting, but I do not like managing servers. That's not something I like to do. There's a lot of people like me who say, I just want to write lines of code, and the deployment should be easy. And if something is wrong with performance, let someone who likes doing that take control of that.
Yeah, because that's one of the reasons many customers choose for Salesforce Commerce Cloud. It is because you get a package where Salesforce take ownership of hardware, scaling, all that kind of stuff. And I was a little bit worried when I heard you talking about headless, that you would need to foresee your own servers, front-end servers and so on. But am I correct to understand that that isn't the case, and that it is still the Salesforce platform which that front-end layer is running on?
Yeah, so it's still a separate system, separate servers that it's running on, but it is managed. So that's where the managed runtime in the name of the PWA managed runtimes comes from. They will manage your runtime for you, but that's optional. Of course, you can still choose to go to do your own thing. If you say, okay, we already have a team that does cloud, we have a Google or a Azure team that can spin up servers, does monitoring, does it really well, knows how to restart a server, knows how to debug issues, it's perfectly fine. But if your organization does not have those people and does not want to worry about performance, about scaling during the Black Friday, for example, or the holiday period, then you can choose for the managed runtime together with the PWA kit. It's fully managed by Salesforce. If there's a performance issue, hopefully not, but then you can just create a support ticket like you've done before, and Salesforce will look at your issue. It will, all of the hardware, ECDN, making sure that your site is performant all over the world. It's just a drop down away saying, okay, I want the best performance in this region for this server, and the CDN, etc. for your images, caching, all of that server stuff, all of the stack that you would have to spin up yourself is taken into the hands of Salesforce. They have people managing that. They know their stuff. That's what they're good at. So let the people who do servers good and they know how to handle it, do the monitoring. Let them handle the stuff, the hard stuff with the servers, and let the development team create the code, do what they're best at, and create new experiences for clients and customers, and work with React, and just click deploy, so to speak, and let the magic happen, and let Salesforce handle the performance and the scaling for you.
Yeah, you already talked about Salesforce has been introducing those APIs already a few years ago, and it's taking steps to going headless. Are we already at the finish line there, or are there still steps to take?
No, as people from Salesforce say, it's a journey both for the customers and for Salesforce as well. If you look at Commerce Cloud, it is a monolithic system. If you look at SFRA, your storefront, your backend runs on the same system. And features like sitemap generation, SEO, A/B testing are all built into the platform within SFRA or Site Genesis if people are still running on that. But for the headless approach, some of those features are not yet available through the API. If you look at Page Designer, which is a very new tool, I wouldn't say. It's been around now for a couple of years. And that is still growing in features, but there is no real API available for that. The basis has been set. You can create your own API for that, but to expose it to the external systems, you still need to do development. Also, A/B testing isn't in there yet, while it is in SFRA, or at least a basic form of. I think a lot of customers already use a third party for A/B testing, but now you will have to do that for everything. Your sitemap generation, SEO settings, metadata, etc. Of course, within the PWA kit, they're already implemented in a different way, but they are not integrated yet with the body, so to speak. So there's still steps to take, but there is time to build those features. Now they're critical. SEO is critical. Sitemaps are critical. A/B testing, especially, you want to compare what you're doing, but there are solutions to that problem. And that is a challenge for both the partners implementing and for Salesforce itself to make sure that they prioritize the correct features, to make sure that on the roadmap the most needed features are released first. It's the PWA kit was released last year August, which is the first front end made available, and over the last couple of months a lot of steps have been made by the team of PWA kit, and it has been made completely open source, which means that not only people from Salesforce are making improvements, but they've given the source code publicly, which means that also partners, customers can actually submit their own improvements. So it's more like a team effort, both Salesforce and looking at their partners and their customers to make sure that the correct features are being added. And if maybe someone implements a feature and they want to share it with the world, it's open source. They can create a pull request, and if Salesforce decides, this is something we want for everyone, they can add it to the code. And open communication with that team is also very open. They are on the unofficial Slack community available in the PWA kit, in the headless channels, answering questions of developers like, we want to do this on your platform. How can we do this? I can't figure it out. Sometimes I even see them opening a Zoom call or a Google call with them saying, okay, let's look at your problem and we'll try to fix it together. So that's something really nice compared to the SFRA, that we can actually talk to the people building the solution on the other side, both on the API side as PWA kit, to give them feedback about their choices, saying, okay, you did this, but might have done it a little bit different. And they are listening.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, we were also part at Forward in the beta cycles, and already have a lot of experience in working with this new headless way of working. Yeah,
so once we saw the whole PWA kit coming, I tried to get us into the beta months in advance to get the quick feel to what way Salesforce wanted to go with headless, to get a feel, to make sure that we were ready to handle that way. We were at that time in the phase looking which languages are we going to support, etc. And since Salesforce was already working on a solution, we wanted to see what way they were going. And React was one of the options, which was good. And during the class, feedback was also provided by the people, including me. Like Einstein, for example, was not on the roadmap, with a bit of feedback during the classes saying, this is kind of crucial. That's kind of crucial, Einstein. This was changed on the roadmap because of the feedback, which was really nice. Yeah. It was not just us, but also other partners saying, no. This is more priority than this feature. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun way of working together. It's not just Salesforce doing their thing and saying, okay, you're going to do it the way that we wanted you to do. No, they're asking actively for feedback, like, how are you using PWA Kit? How are you using our APIs? Is there something we're missing? What do we need to fix with regular surveys and office hours, as they call it, to get our feedback within.
If people are watching and they're considering headless for their organizations, what's the best next step? Having a workshop to look at that roadmaps, like you suggested before, or?
Yeah, I think the first thing, if they're interested in headless, that a workshop needs to be set up, or at least a discovery meeting to see, does headless fit within your organization? What is your roadmap, and how does this headless fit within your organization? Is the complexity worth the effort? Are you going to use this? So, I mean, headless offers a lot of flexibility, which means that it can be tailored towards the company. So it's really on a case-by-case basis on how this can be implemented. It can be from very complex to very simple, like I said before. It really depends on in what stage are you? Do you have physical stores? Don't you have physical stores? Do you have an application already? Are you planning to have a mobile application? Are you going to go simply fully web, no physical stores? Do you want to do curbside pickup? Do you want to have a screen within the stores? Do you want to have a screen, a tablet running around? Well, people running around with tablets with extra features. You can go quite far. And we need to see, what are you planning? What do you have? And then decide how you can continue with headless.
We'll make sure to put some contact details somewhere around this video here or in the podcast release notes. Thomas, thank you very much for sharing your insights on headless.
No problem.
And thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time.